Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Darren here with you. Today I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia with my family, and we're checking out the Titanic graveyard. As you can see from the sign right there, Titanic graveyard, and all of the tombstones right there. I've been here probably 4 times. It's about an 8 hours drive for me. So they have a lot of headstones that have, you know, information, and they were able to figure out who that particular victim was. If they didn't know your name, such as this one, well actually they know the name there, but right here, April 15th, 1912, number 281. So I believe that that's the body count in which they buried them. I'm not quite sure, I forget, it's been a while. But there's a lot of them, they're nameless. And it's sad because, you know, they were never identified, never had a clue of who they were. When the ship was dispatched from Halifax, where I'm standing right now, to recover bodies, they based it on, how did they do that? They took out coffins, and if you were somebody who was significant, they buried you in a casket. But if you look like you were from a different class, they gave you a burial at sea. And I might be wrong, but I believe that the last victim of the Titanic was found floating in the Atlantic Ocean in June of 1912. So, yeah. And here's the big misconception right here. J. Dawson died April 15, 1912, number 227. People over the years have left little things like here's some flowers and rocks. But the coincidental part is that J. Dawson, in the movie Titanic from 1997, there was a pure coincidence that James Cameron cast Jack Dawson, Leonardo DiCaprio, to be Jack Dawson in the Titanic movie. And so when people seen that there was a J. Dawson here, they didn't realize it, and they kept leaving stuff for J. Dawson because they assumed it was from the movie. But it has no coincidence. It's just a coincidence. It's not true. It's not real. But yeah, people still want to believe that it is the actual Jack Dawson, but he was a fictional character in Titanic, the movie. So let's see here. See, a lot of people over the years have been able to sit there and identify an empty grave, like there. Gives you, there's one there, and there's another one right there. It's good that they were able to put names to some of the, I apologize for the kids in the back of me, they don't seem to respect this place, is what they're doing. Here's my son, there's my daughter up there, and there's my wife. So right there it says, sacred to the memory of Edward Elliot of the heroic crew, SS Titanic, died on duty April 15, 1912, aged 24 years. So he obviously worked on the Titanic and died on the Titanic, but they're lucky that they knew his name and identified him. So like this one here says, see, just died April 15, 1912, 139 is the number, and they all go down in a certain row. Now I'm going to go up here. Now I'm wondering myself if George H. Dean, no, scratch that, I was thinking of the last survivor, Melvina Dean, but no, this person's George H. Dean. Parents are Fred and Mary Dean. Yeah? Yeah. The last time I was here, I believe that a lot of these tombstones did not have identification for people to, you know, to visit their loved ones when they come here. But it's nice to see that a lot of them have been identified, because I'm sure a lot of them were just nameless. And like I said, if you were anybody, like, we'll use John Jacob Astor for instance. I believe he was hit by a falling funnel, and his body was in very bad shape, but it was recovered. And his son Vincent Astor went to the White Star Line to claim his father's body. you know the story of John Jacob Astor. He had a, I can't remember his age, but I believe he had a 17 or 18-year-old wife, and she was pregnant at the time of the accident, the sinking of the ship, and he was the richest man on board and probably one of the richest men in the world. So later on, his wife did give birth to their son, and the rest is history. I'm not too much familiar with that, but I will leave you guys with that. So it's nice to see Alma Paulson, age 29 years, wife of Niels Paulson, lost with 4 children. Oh, that's sad. That's really sad. That's terrible. I'm going to guess and say that they were in the 3rd class based on their name and their children: Torberg, Danieria, Paul, Folk, Stina, Viola, Gosta, Leonard, ages 2, 4, 6, and 8. Yeah, I'm gonna guess they were 3rd class because, in actuality, there was only one child that died from 1st class. I believe her name was Lorraine Allison. The reason why I know all this is because Titanic has been a fascination for me ever since I was about 7 or 8 years old, and now I'm 36, and I believe I have the best Titanic website on the internet. It's http://titanic3.tripod.com/1912.html. It needs some work. It hasn't been updated in a while because I've had a lot going on in my life and I haven't had a chance. But I pretty much could sit here and write a book about the Titanic, I believe, just based on stuff that I'm saying here. So I'm going to go back to filming. Now right here, erected to the memory of an unknown child whose remains were recovered after the disaster to the Titanic, April 15, 1912. Now, this baby's grave remained a mystery for years and years and years. But they identified the person, the baby, through DNA. And there's Sidney Leslie Goodwin, September 9th, 1910, April 15th, 1912. I remember watching a documentary on this baby, and I've seen that picture before. I know I've seen that picture. People leaving little notes and stuff. Before, there would be flowers and everything all around it, but the last couple of times I came. So yeah, through DNA analysis or whatnot, and they were able to find out through the process that whose child this was, and you know, this child was an ancestor to some family. So it's great that they really identified this baby, because you know, no child should have to be nameless in a cemetery. You know, they were on their way to New York, but when the disaster happened and the Carpathia, you know, picked up survivors in the lifeboats. So yeah, we'll move it down here. Loving memory of William Henry Harrison, beloved husband of Anne Elizabeth Harrison, who lost his life in the Titanic disaster. So obviously this person was probably wealthy, and his family was able to buy a real nice tombstone for him. Because like I said, if you were just somebody who died on the ship and you weren't really as prominent, I guess, or rich, and you know, everybody knows the percentage of the 3rd class passengers on the Titanic were more than 1st and 2nd class. Everybody was what they call the steerage. Yeah, they had a lot of people in the 3rd class. So that's why I think, like, just here died, like I said earlier, April 15, 1912, number 179. So then right here is a long view, right up to here. I hope I didn't make any mistakes in saying what I've been saying. It's just, Titanic's just been a fascination for me, and when the first time I came here, I was in awe of this whole place. It's definitely it's worth visiting if you are a fan of the Titanic and what happened on the Titanic, and how, you know, so many people's lives were changed. You know, 1,500 people, 1,521 I believe is the date. They're always 1 or 2 off, but yeah, it's a tragedy. And you know, it took a lot of, you know, the American people had an inquiry, the British had an inquiry about what happened, and as many survivors have said over the years and stuff, like, it's conflicting with certain things that people say and what they've seen. yeah, it's just a lot of people come here. I can't imagine where they come from. Like I live, like I said, I believe 7.5 hours or 7 or 8 hours, I forget, to get here, in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. And the Titanic actually sunk just off of Newfoundland, in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, if you look at where Titanic sank, you will see that, yes, it's the Atlantic Ocean and it's very far, but I believe they went and buried all these people here because it was the closest port of call, I suppose, for the deceased to have somewhat of a decent burial, even though their name was never figured out. It's just a simple number, simple date, died, you know. Some of them, like I said, Alan Vincent Franklin, they were able to identify him. This is one of the cemeteries that has Titanic's victims. I believe there's 2 other ones in Halifax. I've never seen them because I haven't looked it up in a long time, and it's like I said, I need to refresh my website. Just life gets busy, and you know, you just lose track of stuff. But yeah, I'm really glad to be here today. It's very overcast, so it's not too hot. You can really. So yeah, this is the Titanic gravesite. Stuff like that. It's up on a hill. Like I said, I believe my first time here was in 2006. So that's 13 years ago. I was 24 then, I guess. Yeah, 24. Now I'm 36. My family is down there right now, just sitting there on the bench, just taking it easy. So I have to be very careful with my camera because it turns off really easy and I'll lose my entire video because the camera I'm using is not very good. I'm really glad I came here today. I go back home to my home tomorrow, but I said I have to come visit the Titanic graveyard because it's a special place. It's a very special place. It's also very sad because all these people, you know, who are nameless are just a number or whatnot and a date, April 15, 1912. You know, it was a beyond tragic. You know, the fact that the Board of Trade and the White Star Line felt it very, you know, that 16 lifeboats and 4 collapsible boats was enough to save people on board, everybody on board, I guess. You know, they labeled the ship unsinkable, which is kind of ridiculous. But that's the thing, when Titanic set off for its maiden voyage, it carried less people than it could. I believe it could have over 3,000 people, so they weren't full up at all. And basically, if you were to unload all the lifeboats and put 70 or 80 people in one boat, you know, the boats could have been filled, but excuse me, a lot of boats left with, you know, less people than it should have been because they were in a hurry to get people off the, you know, and away from the Titanic because it was sinking. But yeah, a lot of these victims are probably mostly third class, you know, which is strange because even though they are third class, Titanic catered to the third class, you know, people trying to move to New York City, to the America to, you know, start a new life. And you know, the mother, the wife, you know, husbands died, children died. It's just sad, really sad. So I'm gonna go back to this now. But yeah, the child, the unknown child that was up there was really nice to know when they revealed who it was. Took a long time, but DNA analysis and whatnot got it all done. So yeah, here I am, August 19th, 2019, at the Titanic graveyard, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. I believe I was saying something and I got caught up saying something else. I do that all the time. Like, I'm not the best narrator and whatnot, but I started saying something, make a point about something, and then I forgot. So I just went off into another topic. But it was really, I was just trying to give you guys the most info I can give. Because, you know, there's a lot of people in the world that would love to be here right now because it's so far away. And like I said, the boat that was dispatched to go look for survivors was taking survivors to Halifax to be buried. So there's a lot of, you know, Titanic was a British, you know, but yeah. So yeah, this is it right here. And people at the beginning were really mad because the Americans held an inquiry into the sinking, but people don't realize that, you know, they were the Titanic was owned by an American company. The White Star Line was backed by the Americans, so it wouldn't, to me, to a lot of people actually, the people who held the inquiry, you know, it was the Americans first, and then British next. But that's only normal. People don't realize that the Titanic was completely American. The White Star Line was an American company. You know, they were backed by the Americans. And everybody knows the stories about scapegoats and whatnot, and people who, you know, I'll say Bruce Ismay, J. Bruce Ismay, for climbing into one of the boats while pretty much, you know, all the you know, the crew and the women and children who died. So he was, for the rest of his days, haunted by that, very much haunted by that, because his reputation was tarnished. And it's funny because 800 and some people survived in the lifeboats, and but you know what? In actuality, that could those 16 lifeboats could really only have saved the crew of Titanic. Titanic had over 800 crew members, and, you know, 2,200 people on board. So basically, the 16 lifeboats and the 4 collapsible boats could only, you know, hold the crew. You know, never mind the passengers, just the crew. You know, and that's been said over the years that it's you know, there was only enough lifeboats for people who worked on the crew. So therefore, the rest of the passengers, you know, it's a great loss of life. Over 1,500 people are gone, like, to something that never should have happened. They were steaming, you know, through fields, icebergs, and whatnot. It's just, yeah, sad, very sad. But I'm glad that a lot of these people do have names now. I believe a lot of them didn't the last time I was here, and I can't remember the last time I was here. Might have been about 10 years ago. So anyhow, this is my visit to the Titanic graveyard, brought to you guys. Hope my facts are straight, and yeah, I can, for people who would love to be here and see this spot, I'm, you know, walking on the dust and touching a tombstone. See, some are bigger than others because, like I said, they're probably a family of wealth, and they just buried them here. So anyhow, so thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.